I see that it's recording us, so I will count us down as well. 3, 2, 1, and go. What is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks with your hosts, Dylan and Ryan. And today we're going to talk about one of the Knicks that is still on the roster but could not be much longer. Mitchell Robinson. Do the Knicks trade him in the summer? That's the discussion we're going to have today. He's an interesting player, as we all know. He's one of the more impactful players the team has, but there are concerns about his availability and just, his game in general. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Ryan, first off, tell me how you're doing. And secondly, do you think the Knicks would even consider trading Mitchell Robinson this summer? And if so, who would they go after?
Yeah, so I think it's a possibility that the New York Knicks consider trading Mitchell Robinson. I think that the fact that he is going to be up for an extension in the near future and that there's no certainty that the New York Knicks have a long-term future in mind for Mitchell Robinson with Karl-Anthony Towns here, I think those are big variables, and that the New York Knicks, I think it's more possible than I think most fans may give credit for, because I also think Mitchell Robinson is a very productive and important player for this roster. He is one of the most impactful defenders on the team. He is by far the best rim protector on the team. He provides rim deterrence and rim protection. He could be a potential solution in the starting lineup. That could be a change you make. He could be a starter for you. But the problem, Dylan, is that you don't know how many games you can start him for. You don't know how much you can push him. You do not know how many minutes Mitchell Robinson can provide you in a season. And he may never have more value right now in the trade market than right now. You and I have talked about the center market being lackluster. Mitchell Robinson immediately stands out as one of the best fits for a lot of different teams in the NBA. It's not like he's making a lot of money. There are teams who will find value in Mitchell Robinson. You may get value in Mitchell Robinson back, but I will say, Dylan, I only want to trade Mitchell Robinson if it's also advantageous for the New York Knicks. I do not want to trade Mitchell Robinson simply because we may not extend him. I'm fine waiting until the deadline and figuring out what we are as a team, what he is as a player, and then going from there. But I do not want the New York Knicks to trade Mitchell Robinson just for the sake of getting rid of him. He is too valuable a rim protector, too valuable of a inside threat, too valuable of a rebounder to just toss him away and say, hey, we can't extend him. He must go. This is not like Emmanuel Quickley. This is not like Julius Randle, and it shouldn't be treated that way because neither of those teams were directly in a contention window. This team right now is in a contention window. By firing Tibbs, they showed you the urgency there. So, Dylan, ultimately, I think there is a chance they trade him. I think there are avenues to trade him, but I don't believe it should be just to trade him. It has to be for the betterment of the New York Knicks in 2025.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we should move on from Mitch, or oh, we shouldn't move on from Mitch. He's a Knick for life because he does this impact and this and that. What people need to realize, though, is the injuries is a serious concern. Look, he was great in the playoffs this year. He was very impactful in the minutes he played. But the guy did miss 58 regular season games, once again missing a large part of the year with a lower leg injury. I understand that it wasn't necessarily his fault. Joel Embiid did pull on his leg. We all know that. But at the same time, it still happened, and it's not like it's the only injury he's ever had. He has dealt with some serious injuries, especially on the lower half of the body, for a large part of his career. And that concerns me, especially for a 7-footer, because 7-footers tend to break down a lot quicker than guards, and it worries me. I trust me, I believe he's very impactful on the glass. I think he's an amazing offensive rebounder, fantastic rim protector. He's essentially the only rim protector we have at the moment. But if the Knicks are able to move on from him, as you said, in an advantageous way, if they can get someone who can still provide a positive impact for the team, whether that is in the rim protection department or whether that means additional shooting in turn for him, they should go ahead and do it. Because, like you said too, he's about to enter the final year of his as long as you're willing to do that.
It's just easier to mark it off that way because it's easier to mark it off that way, and it gives you the most flexibility. All right, it's going. So
All
whenever
right.
you're ready.
All right, I'm going to start myself in 2
All right.
seconds. All right. I'm going to count us down so you're aware. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, as you were... Here, I'll wait till you put the cup down. No, you're good. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. Yeah, as you were saying, as I don't want the Knicks to trade Mitchell Robinson either unless it's in an advantage way, because I don't want to just give up our best rim protector and our best offensive rebounder for scraps. However, I want to get into this because, a lot of Knicks fans have said, like, oh, Mitchell Robinson's a Knick for life because of how impactful he is. Can we really say he's a Knick for life when he isn't able to be on the court more than half the time? I don't know about that. I think the injuries are seriously a real concern. Keep in mind, he was great in the playoffs when he played. He was very impactful in his minutes. He had one of the higher plus minuses. He came to the starting lineup and made an impact. That's all great stuff. However, he did miss 58 regular season games, and that actually was hurting the Knicks. The Knicks did not have that rim protection or that interior presence for like the entire season, and it hurt them. Their paint numbers defensively were terrible throughout the year because he wasn't there. And I always say this, the best ability is availability. And, keep in mind, great offensive rebounding, great defense, great rim protection. I love that about him. He's one of my favorite players. He's been on the Knicks the longest out of everyone that's still here. I love the guy. But if there's a way you can move on from him and get a player that is going to play, whether that means you add some shooting through a deal with him, or you add rim protection, something that will help the team get better, I wouldn't hesitate to even think about moving him. And the reason I say that is because he's about to be on the final year of his contract. So now the question becomes, do the Knicks extend Mitchell Robinson? And we know now that the market these days is ridiculous, right? Players are making an insane amount of money for even like half the production that an all-star would give you, right? So Mitchell Robinson could be making it like in his next larger contract, I should say. If the injuries weren't a problem, Mitchell Robinson would have probably been making close to $80 million if he was playing every single year, like consistently. But because of the injuries, he's probably gonna be making a little less money. And as you were saying, the value will never be higher than it is right now. It just won't. He won't have as much value as he does right now in the market, because what happens if he gets injured again? If he gets injured again in the early part of the year, or even in the preseason, or even in the offseason, even in training camp, if he suffers some knee injury or leg injury, obviously I'm not like wishing that on him. No, I would never do that. But I'm just saying, like, it's the history that he's had. He has the history of lower body injuries, and those can really affect a center a lot quicker than a guard. 7-footers tend to break down much faster, and it's definitely a concern. I personally wouldn't even think twice about looking to trade Mitchell Robinson. Now, again, I'm not going to trade him for scraps, and I'm not going to do like what they did with like Obi Toppin, where they traded him for 2 second-round picks, and that was it. No. If you're going to trade Mitchell Robinson, you have to be able to get a rotation piece that's going to have an impact right away. You have to, because Mitchell Robinson is an important piece to the Knicks. So in order to, if you're going to give up a good player, you better get a good player in return. So if you ask me what I would do exactly about Mitch, I would consider offers, but I would only make the move with the right deal, because I'm not just going to trade him away for nothing. I think he's too impactful to just trade away for nothing. However, before I do pass it back off to you, I will say, if the Knicks are going to be looking in the trade market, one of the first guys they're going to put on the table is Mitchell Robinson, because he has some of the most value out of all the potential pieces they could be moving. So he will be the first guy that gets thrown on the table. That's what I got to say about that. I want to get your input on that,
think
though.
You're 100% correct there, and I will say, as you mentioned with the conversations about Forever Nick, let's talk about the players the Knicks have traded in their final year of their deal, or players who were eligible for extensions. The Knicks were not keen on giving them. Emmanuel Quickley. I mean, let's call it for what it is. There was a point you could make the argument that Emmanuel Quickley in his best days as a Knick is more valuable than Mitchell Robinson is currently in terms of just overall impact, not trying to adjust for roster value. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson for this roster is more valuable perhaps than Quickley, who's a guard, although his shot creation would be very valuable, but you don't have a rim protector. Mitch is immediately your best rim protector. And Julius Randle, who we saw last year get traded. Julius Randle, I will also say comfortably, unlike Emmanuel Quickley, I'm comfortably saying Julius Randle is a better basketball player than Mitchell Robinson and a better New York Knick. I'm sorry, I don't care about the playoff performances. He just was a better New York Knick. Both those guys were traded for deals that the Knicks identified as making them better, and both are deals that I think did make them better. So ultimately, the Knicks are going to make tough decisions when it applies. And Dylan, I believe this is a situation where if the right cards align, they will pull the trigger on a deal. And as you mentioned, you talk about what the Knicks have that another team may need. It is a center. And if you want to go get good players, you have to give up good players. Had the Knicks get OG Anunoby, R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly? How did they get Karl Anthony Towns? Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo. How did they get Jalen Brunson? They had to forego a pick that may have landed him someone like a Jalen Williams. They had to trade good depth in Alec Burks. Even to sign a player, you have to do tough and difficult things. And the one thing that Leon Rose has displayed throughout his tenure with the New York Knicks is he is very comfortable making the tough and oftentimes necessary decision to make this roster better. Again, this is not the Mitchell Robinson has to go. He stinks. I want nothing to do with him. I'm very much a pro Mitchell Robinson guy. I am a believer, a staunch believer in rim protection, rim deterrence, that you need these things to win a championship, and that you cannot operate an NBA team with Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson as your only as your two guys without, at least off the bench or in your starting lineup, rim protection. But there's no other way to put it, Dylan. If the Knicks find an opportunity that makes them better, they have to do it. And I'll say that for almost every player on this roster. Would I trade Mikal Bridges if it made the Knicks better? Yes. Would I trade OG Anunoby if it made the Knicks better? Yes. Would I trade Cat if it made the team better? Yes. The only player I'd really tell you no for is Jalen Brunson. But I'll tell you right now, Dylan, if last February the Dallas Mavericks came to New York and said, hey, we want Jalen Brunson back and we'll give you Luka, I would have done that deal. I'll trade anyone that makes the Knicks better. I'm sorry. I'm a very emotional guy, but I'll trade anyone who makes the Knicks better. And Mitch does not qualify. Jalen Brunson's the only player that I'll hesitate on. I'll hesitate. I'll feel something. Everyone else, as long as it makes the Knicks better, I trust you, Leon. Go do your job. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I mean, the attachment that some fans have with players drives me nuts sometimes. I'm just being honest because, okay, we have good players, right? So we have the right to be very much attached to these guys. However, we got to acknowledge that we can have better targets out there. Okay, like when it comes to Mitchell Robinson, I really need to talk about him because, he's someone who I really love watching play. I think he's so impactful, and I think he does shift the energy when he is out there. However, there are limitations to him. The injuries are one thing that I mentioned, but he's also limited offensively. He's not a floor spacer. All of his baskets come from, right under the rim. Pretty much all dunks. I almost never see him take a layup. You know what I mean? And he also can't shoot free throws. So if he gets offensive boards, he just gets hounded. He just gets hounded for fouls. You also can't really play him late in quarters because they're just going to foul him on purpose so that he has to shoot free throws in close games. Those are legitimate concerns. You know what I mean? If you can't keep the guy out on the floor in a close game, in the last 5 minutes of the game because the opposing team is just going to foul him on purpose so that he can go to the free throw line and possibly make one of two, then that's a problem. That's a problem. We saw it happen during the Boston Celtics series. Obviously, he improved the free throw shooting in the Indiana Pacers series, but they didn't have to foul. They couldn't do the hack of Mitch because they were starting him. They couldn't actually do it. So the only way that you can keep Mitchell Robinson around is if he's starting, because you can't close him in games anymore at this rate because he can't hit free throws, which is a problem because if you can't have your best rim protector out there to close games, then what? Then you're missing your one of your best defenders, if not your actual best defender, in the most crucial situation for that. So it's definitely a concern that I have personally, and it may sound like a very benign concern, something very small, but I personally think it's a pretty significant concern because the whole point of keeping these star players around and keeping them under big contracts is because you believe that they can make an impact enough to where you can trust them when the time is right. You can trust them in a big situation to get the job done. And don't get me wrong, I trust Mitchell Robinson a lot, especially on the defensive side. I do not trust him in a late game situation strictly because of the free throws. I don't trust him in that. I don't trust him to be out there with 2 minutes left in a close game, and I don't trust the opposing team to not go run to Mitchell Robinson, send 4 guys at him, and bear hug him so that he has to go to the free throw line and possibly make 1 out of 2 and screw the Knicks out of wins. You know what I mean? I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to even think about that happening. It gives me nightmares thinking about it. There's also, of course, the silly fouls that he gets sometimes as well. And I want to make this clear too. I'm not trying to rip Mitchell Robinson here. I do think he is a good player. I think he makes a great impact on so many different areas of the game. The rebounding, the defense, all that. There are limitations to his game that need to be acknowledged. There are. It's not like he's like this Hakeem Olajuwon or this, Patrick Ewing. No. He's just a very solid player that fits well on the team, but has limitations, and it might not be the best case scenario for them to just hold on to him when his value is as high as it is. Now, granted, if there aren't good targets out there, fine, hold on to him. I don't want them to trade him for a player that's worse. I don't want them to do that, but if there is a player out there that will definitely make the team better, or that is a better player than Mitchell Robinson, and it fills in a need such as shooting or playmaking or rim protection, you gotta do it. You gotta do it because he's entering a contract year. He's entering that contract year, and I have to emphasize that because, as you said before, the Knicks have let go of guys on contract years, even if the fan base loves them. So that's really all I gotta say about that. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of let out any final thoughts before we wrap the episode up. So go at it.
Yeah, so all I wanted to add was, look, we talk about Julius Randle and Emmanuel Quickley as examples. These were good basketball players. They were not traded because they sucked. The Knicks did not trade Emmanuel Quickley because he stunk. The Knicks did not trade Julius Randle because he stunk. The Knicks did not trade Dante DiVincenzo because he stunk. Look at what Randle did for Minnesota. They went to the Western Conference Finals. They ran into just a buzzsaw OKC team. That team is just really good, and if you look at what Randle did, especially in the second half for Minnesota, he was incredible. But you have to give up good players sometimes to get good players, and again, we talk about trying to configure this roster properly. You don't have a ton of money to just sign it. You don't have max space to just sign whoever you want. You're gonna have to trade guys and match salaries in order to acquire guys, and maybe Mitch is the guy that has to go. And if that's the case, I'm sure they'll get value for him.
It's really that simple. If they can get value back from Mitch, then they should be taking full advantage of that. And I trust the front office to really evaluate his value and really see where it's at and decide if he's a part of the long-term building project that they got going on here or not. So that's really all I got to say about that. We would love to hear what you guys think about Mitchell Robinson in the comment section below. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to say, no, don't trade him, please keep him. But, hear us out on both our viewpoints because, we have different perspectives a little bit. And we would love to hear what you guys think about it as well. So let us know what you think about it in the comment section below. You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page that you just watched the video on. You can listen to the audio version of this episode on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on those. You can follow me and Ryan's personal Twitter accounts. They're right there above our heads. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out and let's go Knicks.